Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. Afghan forces said the Islam Kala border crossing with Iran in western Herat province has fallen to the Taliban. Meanwhile, the fighters claim to have captured 3 more districts in Herat and Nimroz provinces. Earlier, President Joe Biden defended America's hasty exit from Afghanistan without a peace settlement. He insisted that Kabul was capable of holding back the Taliban despite losing dozens of districts in the past week. Indian troops have martyred another civilian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This pushes the death toll in the Sundarbani area of Rajouri district to 2. In Haiti, police say a hit squad composed of Colombians and Haitian Americans assassinated President Jovenel Moise. Police Chief Leon Charles says 17 attackers have been captured. In a briefing, he said 3 assailants were killed and 8 are still on the run. Brazil has reported more than 530,000 deaths from COVID-19 so far, with more than 1,600 logged overnight. South Korea is raising restrictions to the highest level after new daily cases hit a record for the second day running. Pakistan has registered 25 more deaths and over 1,700 new cases in the last 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4 million lives and has infected over 185 million others. Well, those were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. Afghan forces say the Islam Kala border crossing with Iran in western Herat province has fallen to the Taliban. Meanwhile, the fighters claim to have captured 3 more districts in Herat and Nimroz provinces. More in this report.
Amid mounting criticism of the hasty exit of US and its allies from Afghanistan, President Joe Biden defended America's position at a press conference in the White House. Biden insisted that Afghan forces were capable of holding back the Taliban despite losing dozens of districts in the past week.
It's a silly question. Do I trust the Taliban? No. But I trust the capacity of the Afghan military, who is better trained, better equipped, and more competent in terms of conducting war.
The U.S. president said the Afghan people must decide their future. Biden ruled out an extension in the stay of American troops till a peace settlement is reached, saying it would mean staying in Afghanistan forever.
I will not send another generation of Americans to war in Afghanistan with no reasonable expectation of achieving a different outcome.
President Biden said the idea of a unified Afghan government is highly unlikely, calling on Kabul to seek a deal with the Taliban. He assured that U.S. troops will have over-the-horizon strike capacities to guard American interests in Afghanistan after the withdrawal.
For more on this, we are joined by James Dorsey, analyst from Singapore. James, thank you for your time. James, regional countries like Uzbekistan, Pakistan and others had to suffer through decades of insurgency because of the last time US left Afghanistan in a hurry. How vulnerable are these states now as a similar, if not worse, situation is brewing?
Look, I think that the Afghanistan's neighbors, including the Central Asian states, but also including China, are nervous because they're not quite clear what's going to happen in Afghanistan. One thing is the Taliban takeover, which has its own problems, but also the threat of continued violence between various militant groups and resistance to militant groups in Afghanistan. And so what you've seen over the last couple of weeks, months maybe, is that the Taliban, aware that they are making progress and convinced that ultimately the government in Kabul will fall, are trying to reassure their neighbors, particularly first and foremost the Chinese, because of past links between Afghanistan and Uyghur militants.
Mr. Darcy, President Biden said the U.S. achieved its objectives, including eliminating al-Qaeda's threat from Afghanistan. But a recent UN report claims otherwise. What are the reasons for this disagreement?
Well, I think the cup is half full or half empty. What is clear is that the Americans are leaving Afghanistan in limbo. It's not clear what the political regime will be and what that political regime will do. Having said that, fact of the matter is that Taliban was never really happy with al-Qaeda, certainly post-2001 in Afghanistan. And the Taliban increasingly have been at odds and have fought al-Qaeda. Plus that they have promised, and I think one should take that promise serious, that they are not going to be hosting jihadist groups in Afghanistan, that they would either be part of the government or be the government.
Mr. Darcy, considering the pace and magnitude of Taliban victories of key areas, do you agree with President Biden that the Afghan forces are capable of defeating the Taliban?
Well, I think that they still have to prove that. If you look at recent Taliban advances, I think that calls the capability of the Afghan forces into question. Now, keep in mind that with the exception of Kunduz, most of those advances have been in rural areas, not in highly populated urban areas. So we will have to see how that, once the Taliban try to take major urban cities, how that's going to evolve.
Now we are joined by General Amjad Shoaib, defense analyst. Sir, thank you for your time. Sir, without any semblance of a peaceful political settlement in place as Afghanistan plunges into yet another civil war, how plausible is the American claim of a responsible withdrawal?
See, the possibility is always there that there could be civil war, if not in the entire country, at least in certain parts of the country, where we have different ethnic cross-sections are living there, like in the north. But I think Taliban have learned the lesson in the last 20 years. I think they are now much improved people. They know how to conduct and how to control things. They also know that the international community is very important and they cannot live in isolation without engaging the international community. And I think the international community is very categorically conveyed to them that if they take over Kabul by force, then their government is not going to be recognized. Even Pakistan has said so. So I personally have a feeling that they just wanted to get to a position of strength where they can dictate, or at least they can negotiate from a position of strength and force the other side to accept most of their demands. So that is how I look at the things, and I personally have a feeling that even when they reach Kabul, they are not going to attack Kabul and they are not going to capture it by force. They are just going to invest Kabul, show their faces, and tell the administration that, look, we can throw you out, but let's have negotiations. So that way, I think they are proceeding further, and they are also going about. Today, I think they are there in Russia. Before that, they were in Iran. And they are consulting all the stakeholders, or at least the neighbors who are sharing the borders with Afghanistan, so that they can assure them that they are not going to keep the things out of their control. I think everything will remain under control. They will carry out negotiations, and ultimately a negotiated solution will be implemented. The only thing is that this solution is going to be in favor of Afghan Taliban. So that way there may be small pockets here and there where, for example, in Panjshir area, where the Taliban could not establish their rate even during the previous rule. And even today, I think they will find it difficult to capture that area. But rest, I think the country will ultimately look for peace, and if there is a negotiated solution, I think they will start having their writ on every inch of the country. So personally, I have a feeling that the situation ultimately will improve and there will be peace.
Biden said the U.S. will assure over-the-horizon strike capabilities in neighboring countries after its troops withdraw. With Pakistan's Prime Minister, now famous, absolutely not taking Islamabad out of that equation, which regional countries would U.S. be banking on?
I think U.S. will exercise a lot of influence in and around this area, because within Afghanistan there's a large cross-section of people who still think that U.S. has been doing a good job in improving their standard of life, etc. But then when they have left this country, they have left it in shambles. They have abandoned this country, and now they say that, we have nothing to do with them. They have a feeling that now it is for the Afghans to sort out their affairs. But this is, I think, highly irresponsible from that point. If I look at it, these things, the U.S. attitude is rather irresponsible. They have devastated this country for 20 years, and now they don't want to come near it. The point is that those people who have been depending on U.S. support, they are going to be abandoned in a way that they will have to they will have to agree to the conditions laid down by Taliban. Otherwise, they'll have to leave Afghanistan. So I can see things will change, and today we cannot say with all the certainty that this is what is going to happen. The Taliban definitely have assured that they will be sitting across the table and they will negotiate. So that is one thing which is very encouraging. Otherwise, this country, the way the Americans have left it, it could have immediately gone into, let's say, a sort of serious situation where perhaps there won't have been any rule of law. So gradually, I think things will improve.
Sir, do you consider U.S. exit is responsible for the current situation in Afghanistan?
Yes, this is. We can say so. But I think these things were visible right from the day they had entered into an agreement with the Taliban, because that agreement is indicative of one thing, that they want to have a peaceful exit. They just wanted one thing, that when they are withdrawing from Afghanistan, the Taliban should not bother them. At that time, their forces should not be attacked because they will not be in a fighting position. The agreement is indicated. And then Ashraf Ghani had been installed by United States. India had been facilitated to be in Afghanistan by United States and NATO. These two elements were fully under their control. They could have dictated to them, but they never did that. We could see that they are the spoilers, but they never tried to. Really dictate to them that you should not do such things. So that way, I personally have a feeling that the Americans perhaps were they were not interested in stability in Afghanistan. They just thought that we are leaving, let them sort out their things themselves. And I think at the same time, maybe intentionally, they wanted this area to be destabilized, to stay as a destabilized area, because that way the Chinese will not be able to extend their CPAC in the north towards Central Asia, towards Russia. And China's economy is their main worry. And if Chinese trade can be contained by them, I think they should be very happy about it. So their designs could be, in a way, expecting to have Afghanistan fully destabilized. So that China also has made a lot of investment in Afghanistan in the mining area. So if Afghanistan is unstable, then naturally China will not be able to draw any benefit out of their investment in Afghanistan. So such like things are there, which are indicative of present American attitude with some purpose.
Sir, President Biden said waiting till a peace settle is reached would mean keeping troops in Afghanistan forever. Does that mean he has no hope of a political settlement and an end of violence in Afghanistan?
I think the regional countries can play a very good role. Taliban, they are in contact with every regional country. They listen to them, and whenever, for example, Russia, whenever they want to hold a conference of all the stakeholders, they just give a date, and all these people, they go to Moscow, attend the conferences. I think if the regional countries, they join hands and work out a sort of agreement with the Afghan people or Afghan government and Taliban, etc., they'll be able to bring them onto the negotiation table and ultimately be able to find a solution. It is very, very important that now we should have permanent stability in Afghanistan, and that is where I see the role of the regional countries, because we are all interested in stable Afghanistan because of our economic interests in Central Asia, and also the way we want to get the gas pipelines and other energy resources from the Central Asian states. So that way, I think the regional countries have to play a role, but with let's say, with combined efforts of everyone.
Sir General Amjad Suwaid, thank you very much for talking to Indus News. And now moving on. Indian troops have martyred another civilian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This pushes the death toll in the Sundarbani area of Rajouri district to 2. The occupying troops have now killed 6 civilians in the past 24 hours. They also carried out operations in the Pulwama and Kulgam districts. The authorities have also suspended internet services in these areas. Right Group says at least 400 Kashmiris have been killed by the Indian military since August 2019. Pakistan rejects India's denial of its involvement in the terrorist attack in Lahore on the 23rd of June. The Foreign Office says there is irrefutable evidence of Delhi aiding and financing the incident. A Foreign Office spokesperson said the Indian intelligence agency plans and executes terrorist attacks against Pakistan. In a statement, Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry once again called on India to dismantle its terror infrastructure. He added New Delhi should arrest the perpetrators of the Lahore attack and bring them to justice immediately. Chaudhry said Commander Kulbhushan Yadav is the most undeniable face of India's state-sponsored terrorism. The spokesperson called on the world to take steps against the Indian nationals involved in terror attacks. In Haiti, police say a hit squad composed of Colombians and Haitian Americans assassinated President Jovenel Moise. Police Chief Leon Charles says 17 attackers, including 2 Americans, have been captured. In a briefing, he said 3 assailants were killed and 8 are still on the run. Colombia's government says at least 6 members of the alleged squad appear to be retired members of its military. Colombian Defense Minister Diego Molano also pledged to assist Haiti in its investigation efforts. Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department said it could not confirm if any of its citizens had been detained. In a press briefing, spokesperson Ed Price said Washington is responding to a request from Port-au-Prince for investigative assistance. A controversial 2018 law that defines Israel as a nation-state of only Jewish people has been upheld by the Supreme Court. The court rejected claims by opponents that it discriminates against minorities. The law says fulfilling the right to national self-determination in Israel is unique to the Jewish people. The nation-state law also downgraded Arabic from an official language to one with special status. A Palestinian rights group, Adala, tried to overturn the law, saying it excludes those who do not belong to the majority. The group said it will continue to work internationally to expose the discriminatory and the racist nature of this law. Brazil's COVID-19 death toll has exceeded 530,000, with more than 1,600 fatalities overnight. South Korea is raising restrictions to the highest level after new daily cases hit a record for the 2nd day running. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4 million lives and has infected over 185 million others. More in this report.
Surging cases of the highly infectious Indian Delta variant and the return of restrictions are threatening the revival of pandemic-hit global economy. Canada has decided to continue restricting unvaccinated foreign tourists from entering the country, while New Zealand has delayed flights from Australia's New South Wales region after the outbreak in Sydney worsened. Australian authorities have also warned that a 3-week lockdown may be extended as the city reported its biggest rise in cases for the year.
New South Wales is facing the biggest challenge we have faced since the pandemic started. And I don't say that lightly. And unless there is a dramatic change, unless there's a dramatic turnaround in the numbers, I can't see how we'd be in a position to ease restrictions by next Friday. And that is why all of us need to work together.
Cuba has claimed its 2-shot Soberana 2 vaccine has proven 91.2% effective in late-stage clinical trials. Meanwhile, Pfizer says it plans to ask U.S. regulators to authorize a booster dose of its vaccine over the spread of the Indian Delta variant. But the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention say the fully vaccinated Americans do not need a booster shot at this time. They, however, have warned that the daily COVID-19 cases in America have increased 11% from last week.
We are starting to see some new and concerning trends. Simply put, in areas of low vaccination coverage, cases and hospitalizations are up. Further, we are seeing some small clusters and larger outbreaks of COVID-19 in locations such as camps and community events where proper, hard-learned prevention strategies are not enforced and the virus is readily able to thrive.
The global vaccine distribution scheme, COVAX, says it aims to deliver 520 million doses to Africa this year. In Russia, Moscow's mayor said the situation is gradually stabilizing in Russia after a surge driven by the Indian strain, but the new daily cases remain high nationwide. Qatar, meanwhile, has announced to resume issuing visas to foreigners in line with the new travel and return policies.
In Pakistan, COVID-19 has claimed 25 more lives overnight. The Health Ministry says the death toll has reached 22,520. The ministry said the virus infected more than 1,700 people overnight. The caseload has crossed 969,000, while more than 911,000 people have recovered. The ministry said there are over 35,000 active cases, of which more than 1,900 are critical. Meanwhile, over 19 million vaccine doses have been administered in the country so far. In Lebanon, a small training aircraft with 3 people on board has crashed in north of the capital, Beirut. An eyewitness said the airplane hit rocks above a house due to intense fog before crashing in the Kasserwan district. The Aviation Authority said the Public Works and Transport Minister have formed a committee for investigation. It said the Cessna 172 plane belonged to a flight training firm, Open Sky Aviation. The UN Security Council has backed African Union mediation efforts between Ethiopia, Egypt and Sudan. It urged the parties to resume talks in a dispute over the operation of a giant hydropower dam on the Blue Nile. In an open session, the US called for urgently resuming talks under the leadership of the African Union. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield asserted that the bloc is the most appropriate venue to address the dispute. Egypt and Sudan have both called on the Security Council to help resolve the dispute, but Addis Ababa is opposed to any Security Council involvement and wants the AU to lead instead. Turkey says it is ready to extend its support and expertise on migration to Lithuania. The statement comes after Lithuania accused Belarus of flying in migrants from abroad to send to the European Union. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu addressed a news conference in Helsinki, Finland. Cavusoglu said he had discussed the issue with his Lithuanian counterpart, Gabrielius Landsbergis, in Vilnius. He noted it should be determined whether migrants were flying to Belarus on their own, as they cannot fly without valid passports. Lithuania says it will build a barrier on its border and deploy troops to prevent illegal crossings into its territory. Landsbergis said A large number of the migrants had come from Turkey. The streets of New York City are flooded. The tropical storm ELSA hits the East Coast. Heavy rainfall and thunderstorm left roads and subway stations inundated by water. The National Hurricane Center says ELSA is expected to weaken to a post-tropical cyclone by Friday night. Up to 4 inches of rain is expected in parts of North Carolina, with isolated totals of up to 6 inches. The Weather Service has forecast possible tornadoes in the eastern Carolinas and southeastern Virginia. Tropical storm warnings are in effect in parts of the East Coast as far north as Massachusetts. Buckingham Palace has opened its garden to visitors, allowing the public to explore Queen Elizabeth's official residence for the first time. Guests will also have the rare opportunity to picnic on one of the lawns as part of their visit. The garden's current landscape dates back to the 1820s when King George IV converted Buckingham House into a palace. There are more than 1,000 trees on the site and 320 different wildflowers and grasses. In Croatia, a sculptor dedicates his time to tracing enormous geometrical sand artworks that last only while the tide is out. More about his disappearing art in this report. Every year at the Zen Opuzin Art Festival in Croatia, Nikola Foller draws patterns in the sands of the Neretva River Delta. He says the opportunities for creativity never end, as the next day a new surface is available to draw on when the waves recede. Foller says his inspiration comes from different traditions with sacred geometry.
I was drawing here when the tide receded. I have 3.5 hours at my disposal now that the tide is coming. I made circles. My inspiration comes from the traditions of sacred geometry around the world, the Christian, Buddhist, Hindu ones. There are plenty of ideas, but time is limited.
The artist plans to organize his own sand art festival on the Neretva River Delta, dedicated to temporary artwork.
Sandwriting is very easy to do. Anyone can do it. We plan to include children in the fall. We will launch a separate festival that will be based only on sand, the Sand Art Neretva. It will be in September at full moon.
Zen Opuzin Festival Director Ivan Anchet said Foller delights attendees with his work every year. The art festival includes music, mural paintings and workshops for children, with artists participating from across Europe. A trove of love letters that American poet Sylvia Plath wrote to her British husband, fellow poet Ted Hughes, is up for auction at Sotheby's. Plath and Hughes married in 1956, and their relationship was as tumultuous as it was passionate. Her letters to Hughes explore her agony of separation from him while she was studying at Cambridge. The sale comprises 55 lots and comes directly from the collection of Sylvia's daughter, Frida Hughes.
So we're very privileged to be offering a collection of material from Sylvia Plath, coming from her daughter, Frida Hughes, including the wonderful love letters written by her to her husband.
The sale also includes a deck of tarot cards given to Plath by Hughes for her birthday and a striking ink portrait drawn by Plath during the couple's honeymoon in Benderham.
We have published estimates for the various items, so the photograph album is estimated at £30,000 to £50,000, for example. But these are such unique items that it is very hard to predict how the bidding will go, and we think that there will be very strong interest. And
their wedding rings, family recipes and photo albums are also part of the auction. The items will be sold at Sotheby's in London from July 9 to 21. While Haute Couture Week has seen the return of in-person shows as lockdown restrictions ease in France. Some brands like Fendi have opted for digital presentations. More in this report. Italian fashion house Fendi used soft colors and played with stone-like illusions for its haute couture collection. Designer Kim Jones said he looked to late Italian film director Pier Paolo Pasolini's depictions of Rome for inspiration. He presented the line digitally with a film by Italian director Luca Guadagnino. Models including Kate Moss and her daughter Lila Grace wore embroidered dresses, satin marble-like gowns, embellished jackets, and mosaic-like designs. The British designer stuck to a mainly neutral color palette, showing plenty of white, cream, and different shades of brown. Jones, also at the helm of menswear at French fashion house Dior, is artistic director for women's wear and couture at Fendi, part of luxury conglomerate LVMH. The European Union says the UK is liable to pay its $56.2 billion as part of its post-Brexit settlement. The EU's consolidated budget report for 2020 says the money is owed under a series of articles. The report read an initial amount of $8.04 billion is due for payment in 2021, with the remainder to be paid later. The $56.2 billion amount is significantly higher than expected. The UK's Office for Budget Responsibility predicted that the bill would amount to $49 billion. The tension between the two sides has mounted over trade arrangements for Northern Ireland, particularly for chilled meats. Amazon has closed 340 online stores operated by one of its largest Chinese retailers in the first half of this year. Shenzhen-listed parent Tisa Information Industry estimated the retailer's sale this year to be reduced by 40 to 60%. Tisa said stores run by Shenzhen Yukushu Technology were shut down for allegedly violating Amazon's rules. It said the affected stores made up 30% of Yukushu's total retail presence on the platform. In its filing, the company said more than $20 million of Yukushu's funds have been frozen. The crackdown affected products with the tag "Made in China" sold on Amazon. Most shares in the Asia-Pacific have fallen as COVID-19 worries due to Delta variant resurface in the region. Seoul's Kospi and the ASX 200 and Australia have fallen nearly 1%. Japan's Nikkei 225 has also dipped over 0.5%. Stocks in mainland China have slipped fractionally. However, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index has gained close to 1%. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.